is fun. Yeah, this is great. Like, there's this. I'm very excited to see you all here. First off, because I sort of feel that way in like the Jewish world that I kind of know everyone already. Anyone who really cares about Israel or social justice or any of those things, I probably met them, probably yelled at them on a blog or something. And I don't know most of you, and I'm really, really happy just to see you all here and to see where this conversation goes. So that's just me starting off. A little bit about myself. I just want to tell you a bit about my story and hopefully use that as a way of opening up this evening. I grew up, they said, in American Canada in a, I think, fairly typical liberal Jewish family. Good Democratic voters, you know, all happy those things. And very Jewishly involved. I went to Jewish summer camp and Jewish day school until grade 8. Pretty normal. When I was in high school actually in Calgary in Western Canada, and I was, I think, par for the course, good liberal Western Canadian. Back in those days, late 90s, most of my friends were over in Seattle and with all the world trades, all that stuff. That was my friend, that was my group, and I went to Israel when during the summer, when I was in high school for the first time, and I liked it. And by that point, in 1999, when I graduated high school, I found North America, to be pretty darn boring. And I was really intimidated and sort of not interested in the 2.3 kids and a house and a car, and Clinton had just triangulated all Democrats and progressives out of the world, I felt. And over in Israel, they had just elected Ehud Barak. And I don't know if you remember this time in Israel, but it was a little mini euphoria. Everyone was talking about the new country that we were doing, and we were going to build a new social contract. And I went there, and I felt this country was alive. I felt that this was a country where people were yelling at each other and arguing, and were like in the thick of building society. And I wanted to be part of that, and I didn't want to go back to just get a degree and go home and have a job. So, in 1999, a lot of friends of mine were going for a gap year, and I decided, yeah, I'm going to move to Israel. And I did, and it was great. I was there for a year, decided whether I was going to stay or not, learning at a yeshiva. And the question for me at that point was, well, if I'm going to stay, am I going to go to the army? Should I do that or not? And I really didn't know, because I didn't really want to go to the army. Didn't think that was something that was good to do as an American Jewish boy. And whether or not, and also at that point, we were talking, it was a peacetime army. It was, I remember debating myself, would I be willing to take Jews out of settlements? Because that's what I thought I would do in the army when I got in. Because we're going to have this peace agreement that's going to be signed at Camp David, next week, and everything was going to be great. And was I going to be willing to do that? Because, I felt bad about that. I really loved Israel, and to be part of that, to have to take Jews out of their homes, out of the land of Israel, I was really scared about that. But in the end, the reason why I decided to go to the army, and just to do things, not try and finagle a way around this, was the image I had in my mind of what would happen if 10 years, 20 years from now, there's a war again. And all my friends are going to go off to fight in reserves, and I would stay home because I was born in Florida. Didn't make sense to me. So it was out of thinking of could I imagine living in that world, that I decided to do things like a normal Israeli, and I made Aliyah, and I was drafted like any other Israeli, and I went to the army, and I was in the army, and I was, like I said, I expected peace. And instead, my official date that I made Aliyah was September 12th of 2000, which was 2 weeks before the second Intifada started. So I started as making peace, and I came here, and boom, there's a war. And it escalated, and if you guys remember, if you paid attention, this was like in 2001, 2002. These were days when there was a bombing every day, and people were dying constantly and fighting on both sides. It was miserable, it was horrible, it was a terrible time to be on either side of that conflict. And that's when I went to the army. My first day in the army, it was the day that the Sparrows bombing was. And in that bombing, one of my good friend's sisters was killed, and another friend of mine who was getting married that evening was hurt. He ended up going to the wedding, got married that evening, but he couldn't hear anything. He lost his hearing for 6 months after that bombing. So he went kind of deaf to his own wedding that night, and I think I don't remember how many people, about a dozen people were killed in that bombing. That was my first day in the army. That's what my army life was like. From day one, they told us, basically, there's going to be a full-scale war. It's going to happen soon. You guys are all going to die because you're active duty soldiers, so train as best you can to keep yourself alive. And we never, I I read other people talk about a really fun, happy time in the Army, lots of getting out, lots of doing this, partying, drinking, I don't know what. My time in the Army was in the Army, because every time we were supposed to get out for the weekend, boom, there's another attack, another pigua, we stay in just in case. So that was my life in the Army, and that sort of culminated in spring of 2002. There's a major Israeli operation called Defensive Shield, which I participated in. And here's the funny thing about it for me, because now I'm going to sound probably like a good Zionist tape, is that my unit was amazing, and I'm really proud of how we acted. Before the operation started, our officer came to us and we had this whole conversation about, you're going into people's lives, people's homes, and how are we going to protect the Palestinian civilians that we interact with? How are we going to relate to them? What are we going to do? And he talked, and he quoted verses from the Bible, and he said, like, as Jews, we need to do this to the best we can. It's like, this is going to be bad. This is a war. It's not good. But your job is to make this, for them, as not bad as is possible. And that's how we did. And I can tell you amazing stories. And I really felt so proud to be a soldier, to be Jewish, to be Israeli, the most moral army in the world. That's how I experienced that battle, actually, for myself. In the middle of it, though, the Army sent me back to America to meet hang out with my family, which is strange enough. But I came here, spent a little time with my family, and then I decided to go visit my friends. And I was 21 years old, so my friends were all in college. Spring of 2002, on college campuses across North America, I did my own little Azerbaijan tour, if you will. And I was shocked by what I saw. Because here I was fighting a war, right, risking my life, and killing other people. And then I came to America where you guys weren't doing that, which is fine. No reason to be killing people here in America. But I went all around, and most of my Jewish friends, I was at different campuses, and they were out having these huge protests, screaming and yelling at all the Arabs or the Muslims, whoever else was protesting, and saying the most horrible things, and being so angry. And I was like, why are you guys, I just don't understand what's going on. Why are you yelling at them? Aren't they in like your chemistry class? Like, what happens? You guys get back to the lab, you pour acid on them? Like, I just didn't get it. Like, how does this work? And all my Jewish friends were, and they were saying the most miserable things, I thought. I was like, how can you say such things about these people? They're such great people. I sleep in their houses when I'm fighting them. I know how great they are. And that was all my Jewish friends, so that kind of ticked me off. And then I looked around, and my non-Jewish friends from high school, all those good, like, Seattle characters who are now still getting arrested every day, I talked to them. And I had one of the weirdest conversations ever in my entire life. It was actually on the phone. I was sitting on a tank in Gaza. Literally, sitting on a tank, talking on the cell phone with a friend of mine who's in Montreal. And she was like, Josh, you would love being at Concordia. It is the best school ever. It's like, you should be, I gotta tell you, there's this guy last year who came to speak here. His name was Benjamin Netanyahu, I think. My God, it was the coolest protest ever. And I'm saying, I don't know if you guys remember the Concordia protest when Netanyahu came. Regardless of how much you like Netanyahu, regardless of how much you like protests, I don't know the whole story, but I do know that there was violence and vandalism that went down to, and a number of Jewish people were beat up for being Jewish there. So here I am, an Israeli soldier sitting on a tank, and my friend's like, Josh, you would love Concordia and the protests here. So that's what I felt. Like, this was normal. Like, all my liberal friends, especially my non-Jewish friends, they're all protesting Israel, maybe rightfully so, but also saying the most miserable, horrible things about Jews, about Israel. And I'm sitting there like, this isn't fair. And I just wanted to yell at them all. And I just felt everywhere I looked, either it was on the left or the right, or the Jewish or the non-Jewish, everyone was saying these things that pissed me off. And I was just like looking, what happened to like me? Where are the me's? Where are the people who like are Jewish and proud to be Jewish and like also care about other people and care about non-Jews and care about social justice and do all those things? I just didn't see that anywhere, and it drove me really crazy. So then I came back to Israel, and I understood what was going on. Israel is great. Palestinians, pretty darn good. It'd be nice if we were to stop fighting. Americans, they can all go to hell. That's what I thought. Yeah, and I was really happy that way. And I finished the army with my nose up here. I was so freaking proud. And then I got back to my yeshiva, which was known as like the most liberal yeshiva in Israel. It's strange to think that such a thing could be on the West Bank, but that was definitely that's how people thought of it. And I remember being on guard duty one day, and I'm talking to my friend, and he's like, oh, so where were you during defensive shield? And I said, Ramallah. And he said, oh, me too. It's like, really? He's like, yeah, I've got pictures. It's like, pictures? I was working so hard there, it was like exhausting. And we're up like 22 hours a day in between fighting and protecting the civilians and this. I took time for pictures. I didn't know what he was talking about. And he starts telling me other stories, and he pulls out pictures of him with Palestinian prisoners, holding a gun to their head, smiling, hey, is this a fun time? Telling me about how he beat up this person or beat up that person. And I just couldn't believe it. I just stared at him. I was like, we were risking our lives literally to keep these people safe that we were interacting with. We were spending money, we were doing all sorts of things, going out of our way, because we cared about human beings. And you were doing this? I just was shocked. And he wasn't, and my yeshiva was really good. They also encouraged us to treat other people as human beings. I thought it's not something you really encourage people, but alright. That's what I thought we did as people, but I was shocked. How is it that he wasn't like reprimanded? How is it that this was allowed to be? How could this be in my own environment? I thought us Israelis, us Sahel people, us particularly as like religious Jews, we're super moral, we're the best people. I couldn't understand how this could be. And I have to talk that was the event that inspired me to do more publicly. But on the other hand, I look at it now and I'm really embarrassed because I was ticked off and couldn't believe it and was shocked and disgusted by this person. But I didn't say anything or do anything, right? I was too afraid at that point to actually speak up. I mean, I don't know, what did I think of myself? I was young, what was I going to say? I know if I said something too far left, then nobody would listen to me. I just didn't feel that obviously I look back and I didn't feel that I had the position, the right, the ability to speak up for what I thought. Anyway, that was then. I finished yeshiva, I went to Jerusalem, finally for the first time since moving to Israel, started to have Arab friends, started having other non-Jewish friends, Christians, Muslims, this, I got into all sorts of cool people, met some interesting Americans, found out that all Americans were evil. It was really good. And I started getting more active. Like I said, I blogged, a friend of mine started this blog called JewSchool.com, a guy I met who lived around the corner from me. I started writing for them, and that was also fun, because I remember the first blog I wrote was about human rights, like applied to Lebanese people also, because they're humans. I thought, again, things I thought were pretty straightforward and simple. I literally got accused the next day, all like in a new major blog, saying, people like Josh Frankel are responsible for the Holocaust. Somebody can explain to me why thinking that all human beings should have human rights all these Holocaust, I'd love to understand. But that was my welcome. That was like, hey, you want to talk about Israel? You're a Nazi. That was light for me. And I don't know, but that kind of inspired me. I like being called a Nazi, so I decided to go to rabbinical school. Because, everyone thinks about rabbis. But, so that's my situation now. I finished rabbinical school, I'm still trying to figure this out. And I really don't know. Because on the one hand, I'm a pretty, I think, fairly outspoken critic of a lot of Israel's policies. I've been working for the New Israel Fund this past year. I really work actively to make Israel a better place, and I call out the state, I call out its institutions when I think they screw up. That's on the one hand. But on the other hand, you know what? Like, when I hear, especially my leftist friends, bashing Israel or attacking it, I get kind of ticked off. I get sort of like angry, and I bristle. I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, how can you bash the idea? How can you bash this crazy right-wing, insane person? He's my friend. Like, it's my country. Israel's awesome. You don't know what's going on. And it ticks me off there, too. And I just go around feeling really confused and kind of yelling at a lot of people. That's my life. And I don't know how to, walk that. And I'm really confused. And I think a lot of us face similar challenges. And that's what this event is about at the end of the day. That's what we really want to talk about here. Is that I think that what you guys all have to say is really important. And you guys, I'm sure I'm meeting some of you, and I'll hopefully meet more of you, are doing really great work for the world, and have really things that you care about, and are great people. And your voices matter, and your voices affect the world. And we need to figure out Why is it that we talk the way we talk? When do we speak up? When do we not speak up? What issues make us talk? What settings allow us to talk? What keeps us from talking? And how do we create, and at the end of the day, it's how do we create an environment, a world, a Jewish world, a world here in New York, wherever you are, where our voices can be heard, where we can contribute to having a healthy conversation. Because this really isn't an easy conversation. And it's not going to happen unless we all really engage in it and we can get involved in it. And it's tough. So I became a rabbi now, and that means I've got to end here with a little piece of Torah. You guys would join me here. And that is, in the Talmud Brachot, there's a little line. And it says there are 3 great gifts that God gave the Jewish people. But all of them can only be acquired through suffering, through toil, difficulty. And they are the land of Israel, Torah, and the world to come. So the world to come, that's our perfect world. That's the world that we're all striving to create. And we know that's really difficult. If it was easy to make that world perfect, the world as it should be, then it would be here, right? It's not easy. And Torah is the way that we get there. It's the tools that we use to make the world better. It's tools we use to accomplish our goal. And if we knew what those were also, it would, we would be there. We're there. And the third one is Israel. Right? This is a complicated, difficult question, just like those other 2 are. And especially incorporating all 3. I think it's good. I think it will lead us to good places. I think it will lead the world to good places. But it's a difficult conversation. It's something to struggle about. It's not going to be easy. But we knew that 1,500 years ago, and that's not going to change. So I invite you all to really join here in this program. As Nama said up earlier, we're going to do 2 programs, 2 little events here that are first going to just sort of get our minds going, give different ways to express things, a bit physically, a bit through writing, and then you're going to talk to each other, and you're going to just talk. So for this first program, this is the physical one. This is the physical challenge of the evening. All right, the first step is I'd like all of you to pick up your chairs. People on this side of the room, if you can stick them in that corner. Don't stack them, just sort of like shove them in there because you're going to take them out. And everyone on this side of the room, stick them in that corner. And then when you finish sticking them in the corners, if you can get on the line, spread it across the room.